Good evening. You're watching the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and these are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. The Prime Minister lists out an action plan for Startup India initiative. Government also promises entrepreneur-friendly tax regime in the upcoming budget. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi goes into confrontational mode over GST, tells the government to accept party's demand and get the bill passed. A BJP delegation meets the president over the Malda incident, accuses TMC of indulging in vote bank politics over the violence. Defence Minister's strong warning to Pakistan, says India has reached the limit for tolerating extremism, promises strict measures to counter it. An Islamist extremist lays siege on a hotel in Burkina Faso. 23 people killed before security forces secure the hotel and free all hostages. The top story this evening, Prime Minister Narendra Modi released the Startup India Action Plan today, saying that the success of a startup depended on its ability to take risk. The Prime Minister also touched on Rono when he said that a lot could happen if the government did not meddle. This is in line with the Modi government's stress on the ease of doing business. As he launched the action plan, the Prime Minister listed out a number of incentives for startups. Among the goodies the Prime Minister rolled out are compliance with labour and environment laws based on self-certification, no inspection for 3 years, a single-point Startup India hub for clearances, new intellectual property protection for startups with 80% lower patent fee, a credit guarantee scheme for startups, exemption from capital gains if the money is invested in a new startup, and no tax on profits for the first 3 years.
मैं जब कहता हूं स्टार्टअप इंडिया तो मैं मान के चलता हूं स्टैंड अप इंडिया। इसके लिए मुझे अलग सोच करने की जरूरत नहीं है। भारत के पास मिलियंस ऑफ मिलियन प्रॉब्लम है, कोई इनकार नहीं कर सकता है, लेकिन एट द सेम टाइम मुझे इस बात का भरोसा भी है कि बिलियंस ऑफ बिलियन माइंड भी है। अगर मिलियन प्रॉब्लम है तो बिलियन माइंड भी तो हमारे देश में है। सबसे पहला मेरा घोष वाक्य है कि सरकार बीच में ना आए, बस बहुत कुछ हो जाएगा। एक तो हमने महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय किया है, वो है सेल्फ सर्टिफिकेशन आधारित कंप्लायंस की व्यवस्था। और एक बात, 3 साल तक कोई इंस्पेक्शन नहीं होगा। स्टार्टअप इंडिया हब, सिंगल पॉइंट कांटेक्ट, ये हम व्यवस्था खड़ी करने जा रहे हैं, और हैंड होल्डिंग की व्यवस्था।
The government is also likely to announce a startup-friendly tax regime in the upcoming budget. Before the launch of the action plan, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said that the government is also working on easing the process of doing business in India.
The world almost universally recognizes...
Addressing the Startup India conference in the national capital on Saturday, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley promised startup-friendly tax measures in the forthcoming budget.
What is then going to be the key difference once the startup movement picks up? And if I put it in a very simple sentence, it's going to be the eventual freedom from the state that Indian entrepreneurship will now enjoy. It will only be a limited support of the state in terms of its programs, so that there is an easier availability of capital. There is a friendly tax regime which is available, and there is an unleashing of the energies of an Indian entrepreneur.
The Finance Minister also assured entrepreneurs that both the banking system and the government will make resources available to them. He also said the government is taking steps to ease the process of doing business.
I think another very significant difference of what makes it a landmark event is a final break or the ultimate break that you have with the conventional license Raj of India.
Several entrepreneurs, both from India and abroad, and investors attended the day-long event. They exchanged views with government officials on various aspects of the startup culture and related policies. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And we're joined by Shubhamoy Bhattacharya, consulting editor at the Business Standards, to help us understand as far as the government's intention behind the Startup India scheme goes. Shubhamoy, first let's talk about that. What is the main purpose? Is it more employment? Is it making India the startup hub of the world? What's the government's thinking in this?
Ishan, we should not be looking at it as a job creation thing. Startup is an ecosystem, which the finance minister pointed out, and the idea is to essentially allow, just as China did, 1,000 flowers bloom. So essentially anybody who doesn't have pedigree behind him, but has an idea with him or her, can then translate that idea into a business plan. And that is what the Startup India is all about.
All right, so let's try to understand amongst the measures that have been announced by the Prime Minister himself, which measures do you think would be the most critical for fostering a better startup ecosystem in the country?
See, that's an interesting point. Now, if you look at tax measures, which obviously would be pretty well covered by everybody as a very big thing, I wouldn't think that that is the biggest thing. Because a startup essentially is in loss. And in the initial years, they really don't come in the tax bracket. That comes later on, when the business starts moving into sizable figures. What's much more significant is the promise that, to do away with license Raj, which means essentially that investors and entrepreneurs will not have to run around state government offices to pick up every sort of clearances. And talking of those clearances, India actually provides a hell lot of obstacles in terms of each department. The fire clearance, for instance, takes a number of steps. Now that's just one of the minutest things that you would expect to happen. But there are so many of those, and when you go to the larger ones, they are a legion. So those clearances, if they can really become a single window, to say that, fine, you want to set up a business, I don't have a problem, go ahead, set it up. And then it's only after some years that I'll start visiting or I'll visit your premises. That's an excellent idea.
All right, Shubhamoy, talking about the kind of startups that we're looking at benefiting from this particular scheme of Startup India, which sectors would those be? Would they be more technology-driven startups or biotechnology, as the Prime Minister himself was saying that patent licenses are going to get cheaper? So in that sense, what are we focusing on in Startup India?
Well, yeah, sure. Ishan, I mean, like when you look at startups, the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, the IT sector, the e-commerce sector, where there's so many ideas blooming. But then they are relatively the better off, in the sense that they have a sense of the lay of the land. What you want to look at is, the startups which come from the rural India or from the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where it's basically a mix of manufacturing, services. And in that, yeah, sure, biotechnology, that's one of the areas. But I would think even more going down, areas which are services like really, but have tremendous promises to make it easy. Tour operators, hotel systems. Hotel systems is a huge galaxy of things. Construction. These are areas where there's plenty of activity that's possible. But many of the entrepreneurs don't step in simply because of the number of obstacles that they need to run before they can reach a critical level.
All right. Also, Shubhamoy, what would be very important over here would be the definition of a startup. And from what the government's communicated, has that been clearly defined? Because there would be a lot of other businesses and other interests that would look at this and see it as a viable investment opportunity.
Right. I mean, if you look at it, that's actually a point. I mean, like if you look at history in India, over decades we have looked at several schemes. Trisome was one of those, and there were other schemes which came in. Now, the reason why, and all of them were low capital intensive schemes. Now, the reason why many of them didn't succeed was precisely because these schemes tended to create a problem of giving what exactly matching the capital with the labor. That was the problem in these schemes. So it's not a question of the amount of capital or the amount of labor, but it's very easy to define what's a startup. You can see it from the type of business that's been started, from the number of years that business has been in operation. That gives you a sense of what is a startup.
All right. On that note, we'll have to wrap it up. Shubhamoy, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand the government's Startup India initiative a little better. Well, moving on now, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi has told the government that his party would lend its support to the contentious GST bill as soon as its objections were accepted. At an event in Mumbai, he also accused the government of not reaching out to the opposition on the matter. The government, in turn, challenged the Congress party to a debate on the bill in Parliament.
Now, with experience,
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi was in Mumbai on Saturday, fielding questions from management students. And the hot topic turned out to be the same that he has been fielding in the political circles too, GST. Denying that his party was deliberately stalling the bill in Parliament, Rahul said the Congress had objections that need to be addressed.
that the day these conditions are accepted, the day the condition of a cap on tax is accepted, the day the dispute resolution point of ours is accepted is the day we will pass the GST. It will take 15 minutes.
The Congress Vice President also accused the ruling BJP of stalling the same bill during the UPA regime.
The Congress party actually brought the GST to the table. It was conceptualized, it was designed by us. Mr. Narendra Modi, who was Chief Minister of Gujarat, Manmohan Singh ji had umpteen conversations with the current Prime Minister, and he did not allow GST to pass.
The government, however, dismissed these allegations outright. MOS Parliamentary Affairs Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi reiterated that the Congress should bring all its objections to the table and debate them.
जीएसटी जैसे बिल किसी पार्टी के बिल नहीं है, किसी व्यक्ति के बिल नहीं है, ये देश के विकास से जुड़ा हुआ है, देश की तरक्की से जुड़ा हुआ है, देश के रिफॉर्म से जुड़ा हुआ है। और इसलिए हमें लगता है जिद और अहंकार उन्हें नहीं करना चाहिए, और इस तरह का जिद और अहंकार का नतीजा है कि आज कांग्रेस इस हालत में खड़ी हुई है।
The GST bill is stuck in the upper house of Parliament. The government has been making efforts to gain the Congress party's support, having meetings with the senior party leadership. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The BJP today handed over a memorandum to the President on the Malda matter. The party has requested that the President seek a report on the entire issue from the West Bengal governor. The CPIM has also called for an independent probe into the matter.
Even as BJP workers held a protest in Kolkata over the incident in Malda, a delegation of its leaders met the President in Delhi. The BJP alleges that anti-national activities are taking place in Malda and the ruling TMC, instead of stopping them, was indulging in vote bank politics.
इस संबंध में हमने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति जी से कहा है कि आप अपने स्तर पर गवर्नर से रिपोर्ट बुलाएं और राज्य सरकार और केंद्र सरकार से संबंधित रिपोर्ट मांगेंगे तो शायद देश की आंतरिक सुरक्षा के लिए जो खतरा बांग्लादेश की बाउंड्री के पास वेस्ट बंगाल में हो रही है उसको कहीं न कहीं मदद मिलेगी.
The TMC in turn said the BJP had no right to go to the President with the issue. It also reiterated that the Malda incident was not communalist but criminal.
If it's opium smuggling and money across the border, why bring a communal incident? It's a criminal incident. It's a border problem. Right? And there's a tension there. But their strategy is to paint everything with a communal brush, especially with 100 odd days left to go for the election.
While the Congress asked the BJP not to politicize the issue, the CPM has called for an independent probe into the matter.
We are fighting on the ground, the left front, in Malda district, elsewhere in the state, that there should be a proper independent inquiry, and also all who were involved in the violence, they should be brought to book.
भाजपा वहां जाके सिर्फ राजनीतिक फायदा उसका लेना चाहती है। मालदा में शांति बनाए रखने की कोशिश होनी चाहिए और शांति के प्रयासों में जो लोग बाधा पहुंचाते हैं उनको कतई नहीं जाने देना चाहिए। इसलिए मेरा मानना है कि वहां पे सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव बिगाड़ने की किसी भी कोशिश को बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जाना चाहिए।
The incident pertains to 3rd January when violence followed the remarks made by Hindu Mahasabha leader Kamlesh Tiwari in Kalyachak in Malda. A police station was burnt to the ground. Several vehicles went up in flames. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, employing a tough stance on the Pathankot terror attack, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar today warned Pakistan that India had tolerated enough. He also talked of tougher measures to counter terrorism from across the border.
Sending out a strong message to Pakistan in the wake of the Pathankot attack, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar said on Saturday that India had so far tolerated a lot, but no more. Parrikar also promised strict measures to tackle these problems and said the results would be visible soon.
ये होना नहीं चाहिए, ऐसी सैन्य ही कर सकते, बहुत हो गया। सैन्य की जो क्षमता देश की थी वो खत्म हो गई। हम लोग तो एज ए रक्षा मंत्री मेरी खत्म हो गई, तो इसके ऊपर कुछ ना कुछ जरूर करेंगे। आपको दिखेगा एक बरस राह देखो क्या होता है।
Even as Parrikar sent out this warning to Pakistan at an event in Jaipur, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi was questioning the government's preparedness to respond to terror attacks.
The National Security Advisor is dealing directly with the attack. It's not his job. The National Security Advisor's job is strategy, not tactics. There are people who are masters of tactics. They're called the NSG. It's their job.
In view of the Pathankot attack, the government has decided to carry out an internal security audit of all military installations.
जो प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है वो बेस का कमांडर जो होता है उसकी होती है। सो उनको सबको अपने अपने एयरफोर्स बेसिस को सिक्योरिटी ऑडिट करने के लिए कहा गया है।
The Defence Minister also said that precautions are being taken to prevent officers from falling prey to honey traps, as was evident in the case of an Indian Air Force officer recently. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for us to take a short break. Lots more on the other side. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Some international news now, and in a dangerous situation that unfolded in the early hours of Saturday in Burkina Faso, at least 23 people were killed and hundreds taken hostage when Islamist gunmen stormed a hotel in the capital. The siege finally ended after 3 attackers were killed and all hostages were rescued by security forces. Experts are calling it part of a new wave of terror attacks.
Gunshots and explosions rocked Ouagadougou when Islamic extremists invaded the splendid hotel and the Cappuccino Cafe on Friday night. The militants took control of the 5-story hotel, which is popular with UN staff and foreigners, burning cars outside and firing in the air to drive back crowds. One woman, Mariette Quenu, who escaped from the Cappuccino Cafe unscathed, but whose little sister was shot in the leg, said she had to lie down and play dead to avoid getting killed.
Dans la salle, donc ils ont commencé à tirer, tout le monde s'est couché à terre. Et dès que tu soulevais la tête, on t'abattait directement. Donc il fallait faire semblant seulement d'être morte. Et on venait même à nous toucher par les pieds pour voir si quelqu'un est vivant ou pas. Dès que tu es vivant, on te tire dessus.
The assault began around 8:30 p.m. local time. The attackers torched cars and fired in the air to drive people back from the building. There was an intense gun battle followed by at least an hour of relative quiet, in part as security forces prepared their bid to recapture the hotel. Burkina Faso president said the country will not back down in the face of Islamist extremism and thanked the international forces for helping end the hotel siege.
J'aimerais en tout cas profiter de l'opportunité également pour saluer nos forces de défense et de sécurité, pour saluer tous les médecins, la Croix-Rouge, tout le monde volontaire qui ont participé à cette action et saluer la coopération militaire que nous avons eue, que ce soit avec les Français, que ce soit avec les Américains, qui ont permis aujourd'hui d'avoir une situation de visibilité un peu plus claire.
The Interior Minister confirmed that 23 people died in the attack and at least 3 assailants were also killed, 2 of whom were women.
Il y a 3 qui ont été mis hors d'état de nuit, dont 2 femmes, un homme. Voilà. 2 négro-africaines et 2 peau blanche. Voilà. Et on vous a dit également qu'il y a 23 morts pour le moment. Et il y a plus d'une centaine, 100 à 150 personnes qui ont été libérées.
An Al-Qaeda affiliate known as Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb claimed responsibility online during the attack. The attack follows a raid on a luxury hotel in Mali last November in which 2 attackers killed 20 people, including citizens of Russia, China and the United States. There have been attacks by militants in other countries in West Africa in recent years, and the vast majority of those killed have been Africans. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
International sanctions against Iran are being lifted today. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif arrived in Vienna for talks with US Secretary of State John Kerry over the nuclear deal. The International Atomic Energy Agency is expected to release the report confirming that Iran has completed its commitments under last year's nuclear deal, triggering implementation day and lifting of sanctions. The IAEA is in charge of verifying that Iran has carried out all nuclear-related steps required in the deal it struck with the United States, Russia, China, Britain, France and Germany. The report, if issued, would mark the consummation of the July 14, 2015 nuclear agreement. Under the deal, Iran agreed to shrink its atomic program in exchange of the lifting of some sanctions, which would allow billions of dollars of investment to flow into the country.
According to JCPOA, immediately after the release of the report by the IAEA verifying Iran's implementation, we have the implementation day. So we expect to have the implementation day today. I believe it's not just an important day for economic activity in Iran. It is going to open the possibilities, vast possibilities in Iran for economic engagement.
Now, a clinical trial in France went horribly wrong, leaving 1 person brain dead and 5 others in a critical condition. At least 90 people were, in fact, administered the experimental drug. Hospital officials, however, have refuted claims that it was a cannabis-based drug.
In one of the worst clinical trials in France, 1 person was left brain dead and 5 others are in critical condition after being administered an experimental painkiller. The drug was made by Portuguese company Bayer and its trial was conducted by a private laboratory in Rennes. The French Health Ministry said the 6 male patients aged between 28 and 49 were in good health until they took the oral medication.
Un accident d'une exceptionnelle gravité s'est produit dans le cadre d'un essai clinique de phase 1 réalisé à Rennes. 6 personnes ont été hospitalisées dans ce CHU depuis dimanche dernier.
Initial reports claimed the drug was a cannabis-based painkiller, but the health minister denied it later.
Ce médicament ne contient pas de cannabis. Il n'est pas davantage un produit ou un médicament dérivé du cannabis.
Of the 5 men battling for life at a hospital, 3 could have permanent brain damage, while the 4th may suffer irreversible neurological problems. The hospital says there is no known antidote to the drug.
Les autres patients, leur tableau s'est aggravé sur les premiers jours de cette semaine. Et aujourd'hui, on peut dire que 4 des 5 autres patients ont des troubles neurologiques.
As many as 90 people took part in the trial conducted by French-based company BioTrial, which has an international reputation and has carried out thousands of trials worldwide since 1989. The incident is one of the worst in French medical history and comes just months ahead of the new European Union regulations on speeding up clinical drug trials that is due to take effect in May. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for some other international news now in Global Buzz. Taiwanese people cast their votes to elect a new president and parliament today. Taiwan looks set to elect an independence-leaning opposition leader as its first woman president. They hope that she can be the one to usher in a new round of certainty with China that claims that the self-ruled island is as its sacred territory. Many voters expressed hope for a better country and leader. Police in Indonesia have named a resident there, Bahru Naim, as the mastermind of Thursday's deadly attack in Jakarta. They also arrested 3 men in a pre-dawn raid. The arrest on Friday came less than 24 hours after the shooting and bombing rampage. 5 of the dead were the attackers themselves. Naim, who spent 1 year in jail for illegal possessions of weapons in 2011, funded the attack. He is now believed to be in Syria fighting for the ISIS. A bill that would prohibit underage marriages in Pakistan has been withdrawn. This followed after Muslim clerics declared the ban to be un-Islamic and blasphemous. The proposed legislation called for rigorous punishment of up to 2 years in prison for those who organize child marriages. The original law stipulates the age of women to marry at 16 and for men at 18, but religious scholars believe it is not in accordance with Islamic teachings. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank in Beijing was officially launched today. After 800 days of intense preparation, the opening of the bank shows China's commitment to contributing to a global economic governance. The AIIB was first proposed in 2013 and formally established on 25th December last year. The bank is an intergovernmental multilateral development institution. It will be focusing on Asia's economic integration. Time now for all the sports action in SportsBeat. Rohan Bopanna and Florian Mergia had to be content with a runners-up finish at the Sydney International after losing the summit clash to Bruno Soares and Jamie Murray. The fourth-seeded Indo-Romanian pair failed to match Friday's feat of Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis as they lost the final 3-6, 6-7 to the unseeded Brazilian-Britain pair. Former IPL Commissioner Lalit Modi has decided to drop a $3.3 million civil lawsuit against Chris Keynes in connection with the match-fixing scandal. Modi had lost a court battle against Keynes in 2011 after the Kiwi player sued him for claiming that he was involved in match-fixing. Keynes was later accused of lying under oath in this trial but was cleared of the perjury charge in UK last year. The embattled Russian Athletics Federation elected its new president amid the challenge of rescuing the federation's reputation from doping claims. A regional sports minister was unanimously elected as the crisis president. The country's athletics body has been suspended from Olympic track and field events over grave doping allegations. Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.